This is the intro slide. A lovely quote by Elon Musk. This is from our, we have a page dedicated to AI safety research. And so this is our quote from Elon Musk. What we really need to do is make sure that life continues into the future. It's best to try to prevent a negative circumstance from occurring rather than wait for it to occur and then be reactive. And so that's sort of what's inspired the research programs that we've done. And so these are our founders, our mission statement. I'm gonna keep scrolling through. This was the picture of the people who attended the first Puerto Rico conference in 2015. And then this is the list that I was going through. And let me, hang on, pull my notes over here so that I can say everything. And so we have these 4 areas of research for computer scientists to consider: verification, validity, security, and control. Verification is basically asking, did we build the system right? Is it doing what we wanted it to do? Validity asks, is it the right system? Is this what we actually need? Security says, how can we make sure that there isn't intentional manipulation by unauthorized parties? How can we make sure it isn't hacked and things like that? And the control question is, how can we ensure that the AI system does what we want it to do after it's sort of let loose into the wild? How can we make sure that as it learns and as it adapts to its surroundings, it continues to do what we want? And then there's also this question of short-term versus long-term issues. So at the time of this document coming out, short-term issues were sort of the highest priority. And I think for most people, they're still the highest priority. We need to address all of these issues for AI as it's being developed and implemented today, and as it's being implemented and developed over the next 5 years. But then there's also a lot, or there's at least a significant number of AI researchers who really just want to try to design artificial intelligence that's generally intelligent, that can do all of the things that humans can do. And so we don't know if that can ever be developed. Like there's plenty of researchers out there who say that can't be done, but there are enough researchers out there who say that it can, that we should be considering it as a risk or benefit, that we should be considering it as a possibility. And then the other thing that we don't know about these long-term issues is when they'll arrive. We don't know if there will be some crazy breakthrough in the next 5 years and suddenly we have super advanced artificial intelligence, or if it'll take hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. So the idea with the long-term research is we have some ideas of how things can go wrong now, and we need to be addressing those now so that if it happens, and whenever it happens, we're ready. And so that was sort of what came out of that 2015 conference. And Elon Musk donated, so he donated or promised $10 million to us for that. And we put $7 million to, we gave that out to 37 AI safety research teams. And you can sort of have this nice little map showing them. It's pretty global. I think that this actually highlights some of the change that we've seen even just in the last few years, and that we're also seeing a lot more research coming out of China, especially China. We're also seeing more research coming out of Japan, India, and other countries as well. So we had 37 research teams looking at some of the list that I mentioned. Just a couple of things, like I feel a little silly with these slides right now because I heard the comment about 10,000 AI startups. And we're really excited because AI safety has grown. In 2015, these were all the conferences and workshops that were held about how to keep AI beneficial. And even just the following year, we saw this huge increase in the number of people addressing, AI issues, including the White House. So it was very, very prominent people and institutions concerned about AI. And this is just from 2015 to 2016. Everything has been growing exponentially since. There's a ton of work being done in AI safety now. I would still qualify that with, as I think you just heard, there's a lot more research being done just in AI in general than there is in AI safety. So we still want to work on this idea of mainstreaming AI safety even more, to really encourage AI researchers to be always considering safety and ethical issues associated with whatever they're developing, and to always be considering how things can go wrong once AI is implemented into systems. But we're still seeing a huge growth. I mean, like I said, so this was 2016. If you go to an AI conference today, any AI conference, most likely there's someone there talking about some sort of safety or ethical issue. And so that brings us to, just to clarify, I'm talking about what FLI is doing, just our research grants. There's a lot of other stuff that's been happening and influencing AI safety as well. But so this past year, because we have seen so much growth in sort of this idea of mainstreaming AI safety, we decided that at FLI, what would be most beneficial is for us to start looking more specifically at that long-term question. This idea that since we look at existential risks, we look at the most extreme things that can go wrong, essentially. Or hopefully the most extreme things that can go right. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to say, okay, if artificial intelligence is going to become incredibly advanced, let's really start looking at this now to figure out how we can make sure that society benefits from it. And so we got, as I mentioned, Elon had donated $10 million to our work. So we put another $2 million to this 2018 International AI Safety Grants competition to focus on AGI. And we ended up with 10 new grantees. Again, you can see the full list at futureoflife.org/AI-safety-research. I'll mention 4 of the projects really quickly. I chose these 4 primarily because they're easiest to explain in very short sentences. So the first one, we have the Governance of AI program. That's what it sounds like. How do we deal with governance of AI as it gets increasingly intelligent? How do we get policy put in place so that we can enable creative research and we can enable the benefits of the technology and make sure that everyone benefits from it, and it's not just benefiting a few, that we don't have people who are being harmed by it, etc. Value alignment and multi-agent inverse reinforcement learning. So basically the idea, this super simple idea with value alignment is how do we get the AI systems to do what people want? So for example, if you have a cleaning robot or a cooking robot or a helper robot, you can't send out this helper robot pre-programmed to do what every single household across the world is going to want, because every household is going to want something different. And so if you get your helper robot, it needs to learn from watching you what it is that you want. So you want it to learn that you like coffee and therefore it should make you coffee. You don't want it to learn that coffee is good and therefore it should be drinking the coffee. And so that's a problem that that's being studied right now. This value alignment multi-agent inverse reinforcement learning project is saying, okay, what if you have lots of robots that are working together to try to help you? How do you make sure they're all working together, they're all learning from you what you want, and then at the same time, how do they make sure that what you want is in line with societal needs and demands and expectations? If you're a crazy axe murderer, we don't want the AI to be learning from you. We want it to know what its limitations are. And so there's lots of these tricky questions about how, not just how to get the AI to learn from you, but how to get multiple AIs to learn from you. Incentives for AI, for safety agreement compliance in an AI race. One of the biggest concerns in AI safety is this idea of a race. Essentially, if governments and companies are in a race to be the first to develop this technology, safety usually goes out the door. And so we need to make sure, we need to figure out how to make sure that whoever's designing AI is maintaining safety regardless of what the competition is doing. So that's that project. Safe learning and verification for human AI systems is basically just as humans and AI systems interact more and more, how do we make sure that the AI systems, how do we make the interactions be smooth and make sure they flow well? And to a certain extent, how can we train the AIs to basically predict what it is that we're going to want from them so that they can get that to us at the time that we need it. So that's sort of a really quick summary of some of our research. We met again just a couple weeks ago in Puerto Rico for so we've had another conference in between, but this one again was specifically focused on beneficial artificial general intelligence. So we got a little over 100 AI researchers and thought leaders together to consider, how can we keep making sure that AI is beneficial as it becomes increasingly intelligent. And those are my slides.
Hey, how are you? How do you prioritize the areas of focus for the future for the Future of Life Institute?
So a lot of, I guess there's sort of two answers. One, we try to figure out where we can be most impactful. So for example, we don't really do much with climate change because there's so many people who are involved in climate change that we haven't figured out a way for us to be really impactful there. And then, so looking more specifically at AI safety, as I mentioned, more and more people are thinking about AI safety, especially with systems that are being designed today and systems that will be coming up soon.
Different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, or different countries, they may have different perceptions or definitions of what's beneficial. So how do you how do you reconcile that, and how do you come to a definition of or how do you agree on what's beneficial?
So that's actually one of the big research questions right now, because I mean, AI especially is a problem. I mean, there's the white dude problem where the majority of people in AI right now are still white men. And so that is a big issue. I mean, I think that's sort of a short answer, is that it's a problem that everyone is aware of, and we're trying to figure out how to solve it. It does also fall into that value alignment question. I mean, cultures around the world are just vastly, vastly different. So how do you design AI systems that do benefit all of these different cultures? And that's a really, really hard problem.
What are the top 2 or 3 safety concerns that you really are focused on right now?
The top 2 or 3 safety concerns?
Yes.
So actually, the value alignment one, I think, is one of the biggest ones. That's huge, and it's, like I said, it's a very tricky one to solve. So there's just so many ethical questions around how do you design this to be beneficial for all. And another one that we're actually sort of concerned with is if AI is bringing great wealth to the people who are designing it, and it's not being spread out. And so we anticipate that the more advanced the AI is, the more wealth goes to the one or two people who designed it, or the one or two organizations that designed it. And again, it's not being spread out. So how do you establish equality in issues like that? And then I think the control issue is probably another one that's a really big one. Basically, just as these systems get smarter and smarter, how do we, especially if they get smarter than us, how do we keep control of them? And sort of an analogy is, the odds of a 5-year-old managing to trick an adult into doing something that the adult doesn't want to do, I mean, maybe, but it's slim. And so we need to sort of figure out, like, how do we maintain control over something that's smarter than us?
Right. So the question is whether you see the fact that algorithms are closed and proprietary as the risk.
Yes. Yes, we do. So, I mean, again, a lot of our research is, I mean, this is all stuff that we want to do. We're aligned with the work that Elon Musk is doing and the stuff that he wants to do. That's, it's good. It's a nice relationship there. But I think a good example is, he helped start OpenAI, and that is an organization dedicated to, I mean, literally open AI, keeping all of this stuff open, with the idea that if it's not proprietary, we have a better shot at keeping it safe. So I think that is very much a risk. Transparency in general with AI is a big concern, because it's not just a proprietary issue. There's issues of companies not sharing how their algorithms are working. But in many cases, the companies don't know how their algorithms are working. It's just sort of this black box. And again, it's just it's the issue.
That was Charlie. So what she was asking of how do you bridge the gap between what you're doing and being able to get the general public to engage in research? Is that an approach? Yeah. How do you, this is the stuff that I mean, that's Charlie asking, how do you make what you're doing accessible so that the general public can participate and contribute to the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, I mean, we have the website. We're trying to create content that explains what a lot of these issues are. We have a couple podcasts. I'm working on trying to get the researchers that I bring onto the show to be able to talk at a level that the general public can understand, but I think that's sometimes hit or miss. And our other podcasts can get pretty technical. I mean, I think that's also one of the reasons I'm really excited about the work Charlie is doing, because she is helping to bridge that gap. We certainly try to be responsive anytime reporters reach out to us. We try to interact as much as possible there. We're trying to get more involved in talking to policymakers and educating them about AI and what the capabilities and limitations are. So I think that's a lot of what we've been doing. If you haven't seen our Slaughterbots video, you should watch that. You'll be really concerned about lethal autonomous weapons after that.
Thank you. Charlie, do you want to say goodbye on that? Yeah. All right, thank you.
Good, I know. It's the tech horror show. Is there anything that you can suggest that we do to sort of further our understanding, any kind of anything. Listen to your podcast, right? That's one thing. What's the name of your podcast? I've been on it.
It's just the FLI podcast.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, I think sort of this experience is a really great example of remembering that technology can go wrong.
That's right.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you.